It is a matter of deep concern when Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau disappears from public view to reappear at Parliament Hill in Ottawa for a short time to give a speech condemning the trucker strike and then, hey presto, disappear again. We thought hide and seek was for kids and not for adults, and certainly not for the leader of the free liberal world. Feeling concerned with all that is going on, I, a humble YouTuber, wrote a letter to the Prime Minister, which I certainly don't expect to reach him. You must be wondering why I would be interested in writing a letter to the Canadian Prime Minister. It is simply because the gentleman takes such a deep interest in the internal affairs of our country. And it is only fair. We should inquire about his whereabouts in this time of crisis for him and ask him in Punjabi, which I'm sure he understands after spending so much time with his Khalistani ally and cabinet minister, the Right Honourable Jagmeet Singh. Bhaisab, sab razi khushi te hai na? Anyway, I will share with you the contents of the letter which I wrote to him. Dear Mr. Trudeau, let me start by asking you, Bhai Saab, तुसी किथे छुप के बैठ गए हो? To translate for the benefit of those who do not understand Punjabi, I simply ask, where are you hiding? The truckers have occupied Ottawa, and it is not simply that the enemy, rather the people Trudeau can't stand, are not only well past the gates, but they are inside Canada's capital with trucks, band, baja and the entire Bharat. As a matter of fact, since reports last came in, the Freedom Convoy made up of protesting truckers have occupied Ambassador Bridge between Detroit and Windsor, spreading the problem beyond the borders of Canada into the United States. Trudeau Baji, you might be the leader of the liberal world, but spare a thought for the leader of the free world, that is President Biden, for whom you are creating problems. If only you had handled the protest well, it would not have spread far and wide. But let us come back to the issue of why in India we are so interested how you are handling the strike or the protest in freezing Canada. I will quote some lines from your speech you made at Parliament Hill on 8 February this year, when you managed to sneak back in your own country's capital, Ottawa. To quote you, people have a right to demonstrate but do not have the right to block streets illegally and harass their fellow citizens and people who want to go to work and who want to go to schools. Individuals are trying to blockade our economy, our democracy, and our fellow citizens' daily lives. It has to stop. People in Ottawa don't deserve to be harassed in their neighborhoods. Unquote. Trudeau Bhaisaab, do you realize the irony of your words? Word by word, line by line, thought by thought, everything you said in your speech applies to the Kisan agitation in India, in which you so grandly and thoughtlessly stepped in and gave support to the protesting farmers. Are we, Mr. Trudeau, children of a lesser god, that when Singhu and Ghazipur borders were blocked by protesters and closed, then did not the economy of that entire area, in fact of a large part of North India, was impacted adversely by that blockade? Hundreds of crores went down the drain. Did not the people of neighboring areas in Singhu and Ghazipur face economic ruin and their children were deprived of going to schools? Where was your bleeding heart then, Mr. Trudeau, when you gave support to the striking farmers, cocked a snook at the Indian government and our Prime Minister? Does your liberalism flow only for our protesters and not for your own striking protesters whom you call swastika-carrying terrorists? You advocated dialogue with the intransigent striking protesters at Singhu. Are you holding any dialogue with striking truckers in Ottawa? And you're not alone, Baji, in meddling in the internal affairs of our country. That Khalistani and Canada's New Democratic Party leader and close friend of yours, Jagmeet Singh, recently said, and to quote him, the protesters or the truckers in Canada are pushing false information through inflammatory, divisive, and hateful comments. Mr. Trudeau, let me quote to you what the same Jagmeet Singh said regarding the farmers' protest in India. To quote him, I am deeply concerned about the violence against farmers in India. Those calling to harm farmers must be held accountable and the right to peaceful protest must be protected. I am calling on Justin Trudeau to condemn the violence in India. So you see, Mr. Trudeau, your double standards at work here? Or maybe you don't. Look at your definition of terrorism. You paint the striking truckers in your country as swastika carrying terrorists. But protesters who ruined the economy of a large part of North India, killed some innocents in the crowds, and vandalized property and cell phone towers in Punjab, not only get a free pass, but are depicted as peace-loving farmers simply asserting their democratic rights. And your comrade-in-arms Jagmeet Singh lent support to the Khalistan cause, which, by the way, is another name for soft terrorism. Trudeau Bhaisaab, for too long, so-called liberal leaders like you have been peddling the binary of us versus them to divide and rule and gain power. Do what you will in your country. But since when did we become fair target for your misplaced and, if I may say, opportunistic concern? All that for a few words of Khalistanis in Canada? Trudeau Baji, do what you will. But even for you to remain in hiding is a new law. Do come out in the open and read letters, mails, and glance through the Twitter feeds originating in India. Maybe only then you might get a sense of the outrage we feel in India about your double dealing and wheeling ways. Yours truly, Juggi Bhasin, signing off this episode of the CAA show, in which CAA is conversations and analysis. And lastly, Mr. Trudeau, if you wish to be informed more about your own self and what happens in India and the world, then press that big red subscriber button to the right hand side of your laptop screen, and rest assured, Mr. Trudeau or our Trudeau Paji subscription is completely free.